Hi all. These are generally conversations between adults after the children have left the table. The language can be spicy and the subjects can get saucy. So if you're ready, this is the Southern Fork. Unscripted kitchen chats and also studio chats with some of the most interesting voices in the culinary South. I'm Stephanie Burt, a food and beverage writer based in Charleston, South Carolina, who travels with her fork to write for a variety of publications, from magazines you might have on your coffee table to the website you love to visit for your favorite recipes. And I'm inviting you to come behind the scenes with me to get to know the people who make this Southern culinary landscape so special. I'm always hungry for the next bite, thirsty for that next sip, and ready for the next conversation. Let's dig in. The Southern Fork is honored to be presented again this year by Townsend Automotive in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. For more than 48 years, the Townsend family of dealerships has been a locally owned company built on service and connection with its customers. And their experienced team can walk you through the car buying process side by side, from test drive to service oil changes and beyond. Townsend goes through a rigorous vetting process to make sure that every pre-owned vehicle adheres to quality standards. And right now, there's plenty on the lot to choose from in various makes and models. Visit townsendhonda.com for current inventory, or if you're in West Alabama, stop in. Townsend Automotive salutes local entrepreneurs, from restaurateurs to podcasters, and they welcome you to be part of a community that does the same. Tucked under street level in the shadow of the South Carolina State Capitol in Columbia, South Carolina, is the Whig, one of the best bars, in my opinion, in the South. There are good cocktails, string lights, taxidermy decor, gouda mac and cheese and burgers if you get hungry. And if you happen in on the right night, co-owner Will Green will be behind the bar, mixing cocktails and keeping the vibe chill with a calm, assuring demeanor. Will was an MFA student at the University of South Carolina when he pulled his first shift at the Whig, and years later he's moved into a leadership position as one of its owners, as well as also co-owning WeCo Bottle and Biergarten in neighboring West Columbia. He aims to elevate the dive bar personality of the Whig without making it lose its charm, and it's a tightrope he deftly traverses, while managing to keep a sense of humor about it all. Welcome to the Southern Fork, Will.
Thank you for having me.
Well, of course, and automatically having you, I'm winning a bet in Columbia, South Carolina.
Because oh, really? What sort of bet?
I said, I want to have Will on the podcast, and people are like, good luck. He just keeps to himself. He's a quiet guy.
I talk a lot in the right circumstances.
Exactly. I said, well, I know him. We've hung out before, so I think it would be easy. And then here we are.
Yes, I can be overly chatty.
Well, I'm excited about that opportunity today for you to be overly chatty. I really want to start at the Whig because the Whig is one of the first places that really helped me fall in love with Columbia, South Carolina. And I have been visiting for a decade, and I remember you made a cocktail. I think I mentioned this, and this was back in the day, listeners, gentle listeners, when I wasn't writing a ton about cocktails. It was near the beginning of the cocktail movement, maybe, or in the South. I mean, it was going on in New York, but maybe 2012, I want to say.
Okay.
And it was a summertime thing, and you muddled fresh basil, like a bunch of fresh basil in a gin drink. And I was like, this is not your typical dive bar. Do you remember that?
I do not specifically remember that. No.
What?
It means that we just had the basil hanging around. Normally, we turn the basil into a syrup and make a drink out of that. We do that most summers, but that meant that I had that might have been a year when I had mint hanging around and basil hanging around, and just would sort of do whatever people wanted whenever you had time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a busy night.
Yeah.
It was more of a laid back night. But I remember I got to say, hey.
I like the quiet nights when you can sort of,
yeah,
when you have enough business to keep you busy, but you can really focus on individuals and take your time with stuff. You can ask what people really want as opposed to, hey, what can I get you?
Well, and that's let's start there because that's not typical of a dive bar. And I think both of us are in agreement that the Whig is a dive bar, right?
I wouldn't say I'm entirely in agreement with that.
Okay, then let's go there.
Okay, we definitely started off as a dive bar. The Whig is 17 years old, basically this July, and when it started out, it certainly was a dive bar, but with a better food program than normal,
right?
Because of our first chef, Elliot, who went on to found Buxton Hall and
Elliot Moss.
Yeah. Recently departed from Buxton Hall.
Yes, but is going to do another concept.
Yeah, okay. I'm excited to see what he's going to do next. He's stunningly talented.
And also a wonderful human.
Yes. Yeah. A really, really awesome guy. But when the Whig started, it was definitely on the alcohol side of things. It was a straight up dive bar, surly bartenders. We didn't have to be trained a lot. We weren't especially concerned about customer service.
For people that aren't as familiar with the kind of bar, when I say a dive bar, I mean it's dark, often a concrete floor. Not all of the stools match.
Dirty, grim bathrooms.
Oh, that's a requirement. Dirty, grim bathroom has to be a requirement. There's often, I've been in multiple ones where there's a mop in a bucket kind of in a stall, and that's always the stall that's free.
Yes. There may or may not be a door on the stall,
Right. So you kind of have to, if you're a woman, you kind of have to hold the door somehow and somehow hover.
Yes.
Because it's not a sitting situation. Then the bar can be resin and have old bar labels or bottle caps in it. It will probably be a little sticky. And it's more about beer and shots.
Yeah. And just sort of the standard Jack and Coke kind of place.
Right.
Yes.
Highball kind of thing. So but the highball is Jack and Coke or Jack and Ginger. It's not the gimlet.
Right. I mean, but by those standards, then we were never truly a dive bar because we've never been sticky, except back when we were doing chicken and waffles, everything's going to get sticky. Syrup goes everywhere, whatever. But we've always been a clean bar. Our bathrooms get cleaned every night. And it's so much so that we've had people sort of, I've been out in public and heard someone say something about our bathrooms being dirty, and I literally corrected somebody in public. It's we clean our bathrooms every single night. Things happen during service. Things happen, but in general, those are some extremely clean bathrooms. Sure, there might be graffiti on the walls, but we take care of those bathrooms.
Right,
it's a point of pride,
But on the other pro side, it is underneath the television station, and so you had to stop the music when the weather was recorded, right?
Yes. Back when, there is no longer a television station up there, but back when we were doing live music, we would do shows at times, and we would, between 11 and 11:30, if we were doing music, we would stop, or we would start after 11:30.
Right,
yeah, so
because
that,
they had to film the evening.
Through.
Yeah, they had to film the evening news. I just fell in love, and the moment I was there, and they were like, "We have to be quiet," and I was like, "Why?" So it was great. You came to this though in a way that a lot of people come to this, and probably I was destined. I'm a former bar manager myself. We've discussed this before. We're a writer, literature.
Yes. I was in grad school at USC for creative writing. I was going for an MFA, and I started out working in the Whig just once a week, being the taco guy, like not even cooking the taco meat, just assembling the tacos every single Tuesday, getting cash, and then bicycling home,
But then you're like, wow, this is like decent money.
Well, yeah, it was decent money, and I did that for a year, and then one of the bartenders asked me if I wanted to bar back, and I bar backed for him one Sunday, and this is back when Sundays were really slow, like a real quiet time, and I bar backed for him one Sunday, and the next Sunday when I was getting ready to come in and bar back again, he called and just said, "Do you want to just take the shift?" And that was that. I mean, that was the end of my formal training as a bartender, and everything else I just kind of have had to figure out from there.
So what about and I know your job currently is not the same, and so we're going to get to that, but what about the creative act of working behind the bar and creating drinks appealed to that creative side of you?
I'd say it didn't occur to me to be creative for the first 5, 6, 7 years that I was there. I couldn't tell you particularly when that started for me. I know that the first drink that I really made that was special was the basil drink, and that was something that I stole entirely. I went out on my birthday one evening, and there was a bartender at the Vault, the Sheraton here in town, named Brandon Verkuyk, and he had a basil drink that made a big impression on me, though I got very drunk and basically don't remember that evening, or at least I don't remember what else we had down to that, but the basil thing made an impression on me. A few months later, there was a bartending competition that came up, and I thought, I'm going to try to do that basil thing. And I sort of reverse engineered it. I figured out how to do it. And that was my first creative impulse, was to steal, And I think I felt okay about that because as a literature person,
that's right. That's what I was going to say.
I remember reading a whole bunch of Shakespeare, and it's oh, Shakespeare stole everything. And it's fine because it's how he actually, you take the idea and you put your spin on it, and either it's garbage or it's good. You can steal all the ideas you want, but if you can't execute them, then it's a failure. So
Right.
I think it kind of goes from there,
Yeah. And you recently, I think sometime this spring, you were making a clarified milk.
Yes.
What was that? A margarita?
Yes. A mezcal Rita, a clarified one, a milk clarified one that sort of tried to hit all the high points of smoky, salty, spicy, sweet, and then just had that beautiful sort of creamy texture that milk clarification gives drinks.
Let's dig in just for a second onto milk clarification, because you're good at explaining things. And by the way, he has 2 small children, so they ask questions 24/7, so he has to get better at explaining things all the time. Milk clarification is such a fascinating process, and I know that both when I first saw it on a menu, I was like, oh no, I don't want a milky drink, because you see milk. You see the word clarified milk punch, and your brain is like, I don't want a White Russian. I don't want to puke. I just want to have a nice cocktail. So what is the process of using milk to clarify? Because these cocktails are not milky. They're clear.
No, they are. The thing about a milk punch is that it's something that comes out enormously sort of graceful and elegant and beautiful looking, but the process looks really gross because what you do is you make your cocktail. In the case of my cocktail this last spring, it was tequila and mezcal based. You make your cocktail, and then you've got to make sure that it's acidic. It's got to have a good amount of acidity from it in it. It can be from citric acid or from lime juice or lemon juice. In my
Even
case,
a shrub.
Yeah, you know what? I'm assuming a shrub would work if it was acidic enough. But I'm not certain. I never tried it with a shrub, but I imagine you could do it with a shrub. But you take that acidic cocktail, and then you dump it into warm milk, and then it immediately starts to coagulate. You can either pour it immediately or you can just let it wait. I think you get better results if you just pour it in, give it a good stir, and leave it alone for 6 to 8 hours. Let things really settle and set up. And then you have to start straining it. And I ended up using sort of this large industrial bag that is a very fine mesh that I think that beer brewers use. Very fine.
Because you weren't just making a couple, you were making a lot.
I was making a giant batch. I made like around 5 gallons of this. So I had to do multiple batches in order to get the quantities that I needed. And so I strained it through that bag first, and that got most of it. And then I had to run it through like those really huge coffee filters, which becomes like slow and time consuming. And you want to just sort of,
you're questioning your choices
you're
at that
questioning
point.
your sanity. The entire house smells of booze, and you're just sort of like watching this slow drip, Yeah, so it's a time-consuming process, but the result is really a beautiful thing.
And it is creamy.
Yes.
In a mouthfeel, and that is why people want to do it. And it adds complexity to the palate while retaining this brighter flavor, right?
It actually kind of mutes the flavors. You have to make sure that you have something that's sort of aggressive and punchy at first because it's going to round off everything. So one nice side effect is that you can use really cheap liquor. I mean, you don't really want to use cheap liquor, but like you can use very cheap liquor because it takes all the rough spots out of it. Like it sort of yanks all those tannins and all the nasty bits. When it coagulates and sort of clumps down, it takes all that stuff with it. So you end up getting a smoother taste. But it's kind of like when you're making ice cream, you have to intensify your base of the ice cream because it's going to be served cold.
Right.
So it has to be more intense to start with. Otherwise, you can't taste it.
And that's like having a drink
idea.
that's up versus on the rocks because you've got to make something that's a little bit stronger.
Right. So once you dilute it.
Once you dilute it with the ice. I mean, you don't have to, but that's kind of the rule.
Yeah, that's how it's built.
Yes.
It's built to be diluted in some cases.
So there's this whole creative side that now is unlocked for you. And then you move into partnership. You move into ownership. When did you go, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to get my MFA?
Oh, I decided against the MFA pretty soon after, like within the first year or so of bartending. I knew that I wasn't going to go back. I mean, I'd say I've been bartending for 15 years now at the Whig, and I think right now I'm at the halfway point where I felt like I became an actual professional. Somewhere along the 7-year, 8-year mark, I've started feeling like, this isn't just a job that I'm very good at. This is a career, and it's something that I plan on doing for the rest of my life.
And so that changed your priorities, right?
Yes.
When instead of just like, I'm dealing with the schedule and the shift, then you're invested. And then you're actually investing time and ownership. Yes.
I mean, I felt like I started to feel like an owner probably around year 9 or 10. I started, I felt that invested, but I didn't actually become an owner until, I guess 4 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you see your role? How would you define that role?
My role now feels kind of vague, which is fine. I guess this is part of me being middle-aged and feeling vague about everything. But I try to work several times per week so I know what we'll say a couple of times per week so I know what my staff is dealing with. I generally do one long shift every week, generally on Wednesdays. I pick up the occasional Sunday and sort of fill in places where I need to fill in. I like to sort of keep my hand in that sense, sort of know what we're facing every single night, what the challenges are just day to day. Beyond that, I feel like I'm there to sort of keep an eye on where we should be heading, things that we should worry about. I don't know. I mean, it's a vague role. I take care of the liquor side of things. I make sure that our bartenders have the right attitude towards things, that we're all sort of on the same page in terms of how we do our service and what our emphasis is. And I think that's my main role there.
Why do you think the Whig has endured?
I think the Whig has endured because we started out as a place that seemed like it was sort of hip and cool and sort of on the edge of things, right? Okay, this place feels exclusive and new. But that only lasts for so long. And as we were coming out of that, we started to become essentially a place for everyone. Especially as we started to improve our service and be concerned about like every customer that came through the door. I think we used to have an attitude that, hey, maybe this is for you, maybe it isn't for you. If you walk in and you find this confusing or you don't like it, then you should just go somewhere else. And now our attitude is more, well, let's guide you through things and then we'll see if you like it. And then, if you don't like it after sort of we give you good, snappy service and we help you find a drink and we sort of explain how things work. If you don't like it then you're right, this isn't for you. But I think we are much better about making everyone feel welcome.
And does that feel more enjoyable from the back bar side?
Yes, it does. It does. For one thing, the money's better. When everybody sort of, you want to have the sense that you're doing a good job, that everyone is able to come in here and enjoy themselves. Yet there's also sort of another side to the Whig that I think that we're allowed to have since we're not a corporate bar, which is if you do not respect us, if you do not respect other customers, you've got to go. And there are plenty of other bars where you can do what you would like, up to sort of their standards. We have our standards of how you will treat our employees and how you will treat other customers. And if you can't get with that program, then there are plenty of other places to go and go enjoy them.
Do you want to share a bad story?
A bad story. This is nothing specific, but I think a classic story would be sort of like if I'm standing behind the bar and there are two guys sitting there talking to each other and I start hear them tossing around like slurs for women or for gay people or for transgender people or for Chinese people or Asian people or anything. It's like you're saying it about me. I'm a black man sitting there behind the bar. If I wasn't here, would you be saying that about me? And I'm quite happy to just sort of say to someone like, here's your check. You can go. And they'll sort of say, well, what did we do? It's just like, well, I'm not going to explain it. I don't have to explain it. You're not welcome here. Please don't come back.
Yeah.
Go anywhere else.
Right.
We will not tolerate it
We're
here.
not going to debate it.
Yeah, we're not going to debate it. There's no debate. It's just, you're done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Because that kind of stuff is infectious, both good and bad. It creates a bar culture. And like if you don't let it start, it doesn't continue.
Yes. And like we have to do the thing of, and this is always kind of a touchy thing, but like you have guys that want to come in and like, I want to send that lady a drink, and we'll say no, we will not. Like this, we don't do that here. Like that woman is here to do her own thing. She is not here to meet you. Right. If she wants to talk to you, like if she starts a conversation with you and y'all are having a normal conversation and like in the flow of things, you buy each other around drinks, you buy her a drink, then that's fine. But you're not going to like use us to try to obligate a woman to chat with you,
Right. Yeah.
It's gross.
There's
and
a
it's
lot
old-fashioned,
of
it's weird.
I worked in beach bars, and right near Sarasota, Florida. So they were in bed by 9. It was great. They started drinking at 4. It was a wonderful gig.
Yeah,
by the way.
So.
And I knew how to make a vodka martini back in the 90s. So people were just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I also was writing at the time. So I know how that is. And that novel was never published.
Yeah.
So we haven't touched about WeCo. So just very briefly, why did you get involved in that project?
Well, there are 4 partners at the Whig, and our lead partner is Phil Blair. And WeCo is his baby. That's all his idea. And it's something that he had wanted to do for a while. He found the location. He had the inspiration and the impulse. And what turned out to be amazing timing, because we were able to get it open basically right before the pandemic hit. And it's a place that is mostly outdoors.
Right.
I also want to give a shout out to Dino Pernaris, who is another partner and like sort of our resident lawyer, but also our gardening maniac. Who's done like all sorts of work on the grounds in terms of like placing plants and like making it really look beautiful out there. You know, those guys are the ones who put like the real blood, sweat, and tears into WeCo. And, you know, I just really put some funding into it, you know, and the occasional like comment about sort of like how something should look, or like if basically sort of saying like, yes, this is all a great idea.
This sounds wonderful.
This is all great.
Keep going.
Yes.
Well, I love that. I have always enjoyed our conversations, and I like them because of the practicality that you bring to conversation, and you're very thoughtful. And this idea of just kind of like allowing yourself to have a detour that just kind of turns into a career, that turns into a life. You're raising your children here, you met your wife, and, you know, you have a house. I mean, you know, you're all invested. But middle age is kind of a squidgy time, you know, to really be thinking about some things.
Yes.
So what's making you hungry now that because it took a long time for the Whig to reopen and...
Oh, hungry in sort of the metaphysical sense, not the actual, you know.
Well, of course. I'm not going to make you. But, I mean, you can talk about bacon if you need to.
What's making me hungry? I think, to a certain extent, I don't feel especially hungry these days. I feel relatively satisfied with things.
Nice.
Pretty happy overall. I have a hunger for one day being able to have a life of leisure, even more so than I do now. There's an idea in my head, and I'm not sure it will ever come out or properly be there, but the idea of like, what is it that makes a bar sort of a perfect bar, right? Mm-hmm. And it's obviously a situational thing, and it's something that is there for each person, sort of what their perfect bar is. But I do spend a lot of time sort of thinking about like, what makes a bar a perfect bar? And like, if you were to sort of to start from scratch to do something entirely new, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That sounds like writing a script. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. Yeah. What do you put in place to make it perfect?
Yeah. And then set it off and see what happens. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. It also is very scary.
It is.
So what's one aspect of your job that really meshes with the natural aspect of your personality?
I think that I like to help people if I can. I like to welcome people in, but I also don't like to give up too much of myself. Like, I don't like to sort of give everything away. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not there to entertain. I'm there to serve, but not in a subservient or sort of cowering sort of way. I'm there to welcome you in, get you the things that you need, and sort of we respect each other, and that's the relationship that we have.
Mm-hmm. It's a transactional kind of moment.
Yeah, it's a transactional thing, but not in the perfect circumstance. It is not only transactional. It's something that we can both enjoy. Like when we're sitting there, if somebody comes in at happy hour and it's nice and quiet, and they order a martini, and they are surprised that we make a very good martini, you know, we get to sort of chat about that. You know, like that's something that, yes, we sold them something, we made them happy, but we also get the satisfaction of like knowing that we did that.
Yeah. It's a great place to begin.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to go further than that.
Right.
But it's a nice place.
It is. And, you know, you make friends behind the bar, but you're not going to make friends with every customer.
Right.
And it becomes untenable, you know? Like you can't, you've got to just sort of, you have to keep things to yourself, you know? And I think a lot of bartenders can get into trouble where like they engage too much with customers, you know, and then people sort of feel too comfortable and take liberties. Some reserve is good. Some reserve is good.
Get it. Boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries. Quick fire. I know there's a lot in the world, and in your life as well. But what is one thing that kind of keeps you up at night?
I mean, I think kind of what we were talking about, sort of that perfect bar idea, like the question of what is next? What, if you do something else, what shape does it take? Is it something that is strictly cocktail? Do you go for sort of that all-around bar vibe? Do you go for something very specific? You know, like I have some extremely detailed ideas about bars that I'm not sure would work in Colombia, you know, because I don't know if we have the density. Like I go to these bars elsewhere and see things that are really amazing and very interesting ideas. And I think, can we quite do it here? Can you pull that off?
It is a lot more about density than people want to admit.
It is.
Because like you go to Brooklyn, you can have any kind of bar in the world because there's a lot of people.
Yes. I went to a bar in Atlanta a couple of months ago. I forget the name of it, but it was in Inman Park. And it was the first bar that I would refer to as being like hostile architecture. And I loved it.
Oh.
There was barely any seating in there. Like there was a room in the back that had like a couch with some seating around it. And then there was sort of like stools that were like clamped down to the floor in a ring around the front bar. But otherwise, like there was room in there for probably, 60 people, but only seating for about 20 when it was really that. And it was a very high end cocktail bar. But I think the basic idea was come in, have your drink, enjoy yourself, and then please move on. This place is busy. Get out. And like, I don't think you can do that in Colombia, but I love the idea, and it was working extremely well for that bar.
That is so weird because when I was at Lila, I was at dinner with a few people, including a couple journalists that were from there, and they were talking about this bar. It had just opened. And I said, oh, that sounds like a nightmare. So it's very interesting from an owner standpoint where you're like, oh, I see immediately why this is happening. And I'm like, why are we standing in a room of concrete? I don't want this,
Yeah. I mean, in this place, it was beautiful and like it felt comfortable to sort of be there for a little bit. But like, obviously the point was not for you to just like hang out there all night.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, come in, have a couple of our like pretty strong cocktails, but after probably about 3, it's probably about time to, why don't you go wander on somewhere else a little more comfortable? Like, you guys go find a place to sit, like, and like my wife and I, we were in there and we each had 2 drinks, did a little bit of reading. I worked on my crossword puzzle and didn't feel like rushed, but like as it started to fill in, I was like, all right, it's time to go. Yeah. And that's
pretty
that was
cool.
A good thing.
That's interesting. I love that perspective. All right. There's something that I reserve only for Southern Fort guests, and I'm finally happy that includes you. So, something I bring to interviews is a magic picnic basket. And a lot of us in the business talk about death row meals. I don't believe in the death penalty. So I instead want to bring you some of your favorite things that bring you life. So in this picnic basket, I can cook a little bit. I can source. I can go back in time because I'm cool like that and ask somebody to make a little bite of something that you wish you had again. And we can put it all together in a picnic basket for you to enjoy. What can I bring you?
That's a good question. I think there were these sandwiches from Museo de Jamón in Madrid that I subsisted on for a while when I was there in my early 20s and was very broke. They were just sort of hard little rolls, crusty rolls with like a slice of manchego cheese in the middle. Like literally that was it. After living on them for a week, it really tore up my mouth, but like I miss those. I would love Yeah, I mean after living on those for like a month, like you'd kind of be in fear of like having another one, but like I missed those. Those were delicious. Along that same vein in Spain, there were also these little white anchovies that the bar underneath my apartment served that just were in this sort of bright green mixture of vinegar, like bright greenish yellow, like chartreuse, of vinegar and olive oil and garlic. And they were just completely amazing. And you just got them free, like whenever you ordered a drink. And I like those. I've never been able to have anything like that again. And the third thing, there's this meatball on Bainbridge Island in Seattle. We went over to Bainbridge Island so that my wife Eva could go to an extremely nice knitting store that no longer exists. And like
Sorry, Eva, we just outed you.
While she was puttering around there for an hour or so, I kind of bar hopped through the area and I ended up having the best meatball of my life at this little sort of modern Italian place that was spectacular. Just everything I've ever wanted out of a meatball. And I've been sort of tasting that dragon ever since. So I think those 3 items would make me suddenly happy. I should probably throw in a vegetable, but we'll leave it at that.
Hey, it's your basket.
Yeah.
Also, I want to travel with you based on that basket. So if people want to learn more about Will Green and his 2 businesses here in Columbia, South Carolina, you can go to thesouthernfork.com. Per usual, I'm going to have links there so you can click through. Also, so you can see the face behind the voice, which is a lovely voice. It's so fun to record voices each week because they're all so interesting. I love taking the time to listen and edit because I get to relive our chat. And you can relive any chat that you would like in the archives. Also, you might want to dig in there. There's 285, so more than likely you haven't listened to them all unless you're one of my loyal listeners. And if that's you, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for chatting with me today in the recording room of the Richland County Library.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait to cheers a cocktail sometime.
We'll do it.
Hello and welcome to Talking with My Mouth Full. If you are into making cocktails at home, I am here today to suggest that this summer you take a page of inspiration from Will and look to your garden for some cocktail freshening up. It's very, very easy to take some of the fresh things in your garden and incorporate them into some really classic, simple cocktails that you can make at home, even without a lot of recipes. You don't have to make a clarified milk punch, although if you do, Will and I are 100% behind that. But if you have a gin and tonic, you can add basil to that, add some muddled basil to that, and garnish with the basil instead of a lime or with both. On a margarita, you can switch it up and make a cucumber margarita. I know if you're like, me growing up, you had cucumbers in the garden and they just got big really fast when they started coming in. So a cucumber margarita with tequila or mezcal is a great switch out for your margarita mix, which I hope you're not using. I hope you're using fresh lime juice, but cucumber margarita would be wonderful. Use any other kinds of herbs like a thyme goes really well with lemon. So if you want to add thyme to a lemon drop or to even a vodka soda with lemon, and then you just add a little bit of thyme to that, it'll just freshen up, give you a little bit of variety in your home cocktail bar without really doing anything majorly different. And you won't have to go to a bottle shop and purchase different syrups or different liqueurs unless you just love that sort of thing. Just throw some fresh herbs in your classic cocktail. If you like old fashions, I haven't forgotten about you bourbon people out there. Why not slice a fresh fig from your backyard garden and garnish with that instead of a cherry this summer? Just some garden cocktail inspiration for your Friday afternoon. And I wish you a happy weekend and cheers to the weekend. Thanks a lot for listening, and I will talk with you next time.
You've been listening to The Southern Fork. I can't wait to bring you more culinary conversations, but in the meantime, I have one question. Are you gonna eat all that?